Matt Wise is gone, and what he went to do says a lot about how he's viewed as a pitching coach in MLB. It's Fanmail Friday. We got a lot to discuss, so let's get started. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you want to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Angel content, here's how you can do that. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, then please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's a Fan Mail Friday edition of Locked On Angels, and we appreciate everybody who sent in questions for today's episode. In fact, Mike, we got a question from Locked On Everydayer. Cope, your good buddy,
Heck yeah.
Jeremy Copeland on Twitter sent in a question. Why don't you read that one for us?
He said, what are the Halos waiting for on making decisions about pitching and hitting coaches? And what if Shohei waits late into the offseason to make a decision? How long can the Halos wait to reallocate that money elsewhere before other guys get snatched up? And then he tweeted again and said, no sooner that I hit send did I see the news about Matt Wise. So let's talk about Matt Wise, Johnny, and let's talk about Shohei. Why don't you get us started?
Yeah, so I kind of want to go through Cope's questions here regarding, what are the Angels waiting for in terms of hitting and pitching coaches and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And about Shohei Ohtani. So recently, Rhett Bollinger, he's the Angels beat writer for MLB. He actually released a newsletter that said the Angels are expected to announce a new manager shortly after the World Series. So we'll find out pretty soon, Mike, about the next Angels manager and who that might be. The next manager is going to be that one who builds out the coaching staff once he arrives. So I imagine once we have that hire in place, we'll start to see so-and-so is going to be pitching coach. Somebody's going to be hitting coach. In fact, some of the people who are there now might not be there when the new manager takes over. Sam Blum had an article kind of talking about Matt Wise and how he went to the White Sox of The Athletic. He reported that because the Angels did not pick up the option on Phil Nevin's contract, many of the coaches were told they could pursue other opportunities as their futures with the Angels remain in limbo. So everybody is free to move on to somewhere else. I'm sure not everybody got told that, Mike. I'm sure not everybody is planned on getting not canned, but like they don't want them there anymore.
Yeah.
I imagine somebody like Bill Hessel, who was definitely a Perry Manassian kind of hire. He's the guy, of course, who is the assistant pitching coach, works in the bullpen, and was hired from Driveline. I imagine he'll still be there.
Sure.
Fingers crossed from me that Phil Plantier also stays, because we've heard a lot of great things about him. I could see Marcus Timms being taken off this coaching staff, because the hitting coach is somebody that the manager will definitely want to replace. Now, regarding Shohei Ohtani, I think somebody made a really good point on YouTube yesterday in our comments that Locked On Everydayer, K Wolf X. There we go. K Wolf X, shout out to you on our YouTube comments, because you smartly pointed out that with the winter meetings coming up in early December, I think it's like December 4th, I think they begin, we'll probably see some news about Shohei Ohtani around then at the winter meetings. It's going to be the talk of the winter meetings is where he's going to land. So hold on to your butts, Angel fans, because that's going to be all the conversation you hear at the winter meetings. And usually that's when those big free agent acquisitions happen anyway. They happen at winter meetings, but they also happen shortly thereafter. So I don't think that Ohtani is going to wait very long to pick his next destination. I think we're all a little antsy to get things going and figure things out and where he's going to land. But again, we're going to have to wait till after the World Series. And also, I think that timing of his signing will be around the winter meeting. So early December is when we'll find out. So I don't think the Angels are going to have to wait around much longer. I don't think they'll have to wait and worry about, like, do we get Shohei or do we go after other people? I think they'll have that answer probably pretty clearly before the winter meetings. But if not, I'm sure that the latest on what they plan on doing will be in December. Matt Wise, moving on, my friend. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, he's going to the White Sox, and there's an Angel connection. One of the people that he'll be working with was with the Angels previously. He's going to be their new bullpen coach, Johnny.
Hey!
How about that? Significant role, really impactful, influential. Wait a second. We're talking about Matt Wise. I saw somebody tweet out and say, well, good, he's leaving. He's leaving this dumpster fire. He's the reason why it's a dumpster fire, in my opinion. I mean, this guy has not been great for this team. He's always kind of felt like an interim pitching coach. He took over because he was the interim pitching coach, and then just kind of, well, Matt's here. Let's just have him do it, right? And I get that there's a lot of knocks against him. There have been some people that said, well, wait a second, the Angels had a top 10 ERA in 2022, but the reality is I think a broken clock is right twice a day, right? And so Matt Wise may have been right that one particular year, but what we saw this year is, I think, the epitome of his coaching. There was a lot of changes with the pitch clock and with the shifts, and it really didn't look good for the Angels, right?
No.
They didn't feel like they adjusted at all. They didn't feel like they got better. In fact, a lot of the pitchers got worse. Sandoval looks like a pitcher who's completely lost out there. And I know Reed Detmers had talked often about how Matt Wise would help him, and that there was one outing where he was terrible and the next outing he was great, and how Matt Wise spent some time there. But that's only one of maybe two stories that we've heard in his 3 to 4 years with the Angels that he's really been impactful. And so I think this is a brilliant move. The Angels, because of that one season, people will go, well, maybe it wasn't. But truthfully, the Angels were not good this year. They were 23rd in ERA in 2023 under Matt Wise. And he is somebody that we have always asked the question, what do you actually do on this team, right? I mean, there was that whole story with Buddy Carlisle in AAA where Reed Detmers went down last season and got better when he came back up. We also got news, by the way, that Buddy's not with the team anymore.
Yeah, so they're really cleaning house.
It does feel like they are. And I think, honestly, John, I think that's the best move. I know that most of the people that are there were there before Perry or kind of came in because Phil Nevin wanted them. I do think it's the best move. It's time to clean house, and it's time to adjust some things. And I think Matt Wise and him being moved on is a great move, and it's a long, long overdue.
What does it say that the Angels pitching coach, major league pitching coach for the last 3 years, Mike, is going to another bad team to be their bullpen coach?
Right.
Like, this is the guy who's been in charge of our pitching staff for 3 years. And like you said, to me, it's always felt like interim pitching coach because he took over after Mickey Callaway got fired, and rightfully so. Like, he deserved to be let go, and Matt Wise stepped into that role. That was 3 years ago.
Right.
You can't tell me that there's no reason why Matt Wise should have continued to be the pitching coach. And I will say, he probably looked like the guy who failed the least at his job when it came to the staff, because, last year's hitting coach was awful, and Matt Wise sort of looked like he got the team to turn it around there at the end because the pitching staff was pretty good. But miss me with that. Well, he was top 10 in 2022 in ERA. Yeah, but now they're 23rd in ERA in 2023. So miss me with that. Because
he's supposed to be really good for young pitchers, but he hasn't been really good for these young pitchers. I feel like he's George Costanza when George quits and then he comes back and that boss goes, is that Costanza sitting over there? I think that's how it's been, right?
That's Mad Dog Chris Russo when he said he was going to retire and then backed out. Gee, what a spineless, gutless coward.
Both Russo of them that host that show, they can get out. That'd be great. Johnny, I think when it comes to Matt Wise specifically, I think the undermining for him was the fact that he may have not really known if this was going to be his job in the next season. And I think that they have to get rid of all of this ambiguity and be very clear with the coaches they're going to get and with the roles that they're playing, so that there isn't like well, I guess I'm going to be here next year, right? Like I get that he was in and he was helping or trying to help these pitchers, but if you're not sure about what your role is going to be in the future, I wonder if you save some bullets. I wonder if you hold back and play some things close to the chest. This is just me thinking out loud, but like if I'm not going to be here next year, I'm not going to share all of my goodness and all of my details with these guys. Who knows, right? Like that might be giving him an excuse, but I'm glad he's gone, because it really, back to the question we've always asked, gosh, why is he still here? What do you do?
What do you do? Well, he was a warm body who could breathe oxygen, Mike. I mean,
yeah.
Look, like you and I agree on a lot of stuff, but to suggest that Matt Wise has some knowledge or stuff left in the tank, like, bro, come on. and
he certainly didn't prove it, right?
No, and the truth is like Sam Blum of The Athletic, like that news was eye-opening to me. That he said many of the coaches were told they could pursue other opportunities as their futures with the Angels remain in limbo. Like, that wasn't known until Sam reported that yesterday. And the fact that Matt Wise was able to find employment somewhere else, kind of the writing on the wall there was like, hey, dude, you should go find another job, because otherwise you're going to get fired and you're definitely not staying on as the pitching coach next season.
Right.
And so, I think it's the best move for everybody involved. Buddy Carlisle was surprising to me because he seemed to be the only one we ever heard positive news about. And so that's a little bit disappointing, but look, if they're going to wipe the slate clean and bring in other people, that's fine with me.
Fresh voices. They're going to be non-emotional. They're not going to be tied in relationship with these guys to initially start. They're going to be able to say that slider sucks, stop throwing it that way. That fastball, like that, right? You need to throw strikes when you're up 0-2. Figure it out, Patrick. Like, there's not going to be that emotional buddy relationship. It's going to be somebody coming in and going, let's figure this out. Here's what you need to do. So do it.
Yeah, exactly. The emotional buddy relationship will be out the window. And so you could even tell somebody you really love and care about that, no, Matt Wise wasn't saving any wisdom or bullets. I'm just
Got it.
Right. Hey, friends, coming up on Locked On Angels, if new manager is coming in soon, do they need to know if Shohei Ohtani is going to be part of this team or not? And is that going to impact the way that they manage in 2024? Well, we'll break that down and talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Jase Medical. A lot of uncertainty in our world today, and it's important to be prepared. There's unrest in the Middle East. There's fires in Hawaii that have taken place, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, and all of these can lead to a supply chain shortage in medications, or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. And that's why you need a Jase case. Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. And you can customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Just fill out a simple online form. And in some cases, you can jump on the phone with one of their board-certified physicians to get started. Jase handles everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So go to jasemedical.com and enter our promo code LOCKEDON at the checkout, and you'll get $20 off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com.
You made a really good point, because just because we're not near, I mean, the earthquakes, obviously, in California, we're near that, but with so much going on, you don't have to be near that stuff for it to affect you. And so this is the perfect opportunity to make sure you have what you need with Jase Medical. So like Mike said, go to jasemedical.com, use our promo code Locked On. I think it's really important and a good opportunity to make sure that you're safe and secure. So again, use the promo code Locked On at jasemedical.com. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, we hope you have a great weekend. I know you probably go to some Halloween parties and do a little celebration there, because Halloween's on Tuesday. That's crazy. But we'll be back here on Monday to continue our conversation about the Halos that we'll be having all off season long. And if there's any more news like there was yesterday regarding the coaching staff or anything like that, we'll be sure to update you on Monday. Otherwise, we'll continue our conversation about the Halos and get into all the conversations that you want to talk about So again, Monday, Locked On Angels, join us on Monday. Join us every single weekday because we are here for you through the offseason.
Our friend Torrid on YouTube left us a question for Fanmail Friday. He said, although he won't have the power, do you think it would be best if the new manager would know if Ohtani is staying or not? That is, how much of a difference in managing philosophy is needed for an Ohtani-less Angels or an Angels with Ohtani? So really the question that he's asking here is, does the manager need to know if Ohtani's coming back or not? So let's look at what it might mean if they do bring him back and what it might mean if they don't. John, start with if they do bring him back.
Yeah, if Ohtani's on this team, a manager is going to have to consider a few things. First is that in 2024, Ohtani is going to be a DH only. We know that his injury to the elbow is going to keep him from pitching until about 2025, maybe even mid 2025. They're pretty optimistic that he'll be back at the beginning of 2025 to pitch, but I feel like you want to be cautious with that timeline. Either way, the manager is going to have to plan around the fact that Ohtani needs to DH every single day. And then a manager, whether Ohtani's there or not, and if he is and he's not pitching, I think they're still going to consider, Mike, whether to have a 5-man rotation or a 6-man rotation. I know that typically you do have a 5-man rotation, but a lot more teams are using a 6-man rotation. With the way that the Angels have been used to pitching on a 6-man rotation the last few years, especially with Ohtani, you might see that they continue that trend, or they might go with a 5-man rotation. Either way, Shohei's not going to factor into that equation just yet, but if he does come back and pitch in 2025, maybe you already want to lay the groundwork for pitchers to be in a 6-man rotation. Plus, a lot of our Angels have already done that. And then the next thing is that they're going to have to get creative in knowing that Ohtani's going to need to DH, so the DH spot won't be as available as it might be if Ohtani's not on this team. That means a manager is going to need to consider how to give guys time off, like Rendon or Trout or somebody who's, getting up there and needs to be off their feet, since the DH isn't going to be available all the time. So we'll see a schedule similar to what we've already seen, because we're used to seeing what Shohei Ohtani on this team looks like in that DH spot. And then a manager is going to have to actually know how to manage Ohtani. How much do you let him do his own thing in terms of prep and conditioning? It seems like Ohtani has a pretty good routine for himself. He knows his body best. So perhaps this new manager coming in is going to need to look to somebody like Perry Minasian to kind of give him advice on how Ohtani has been managed in the past. But Mike, what about what this team looks like if there is no Ohtani on here? How does the manager respond to that?
Quick thought on what you just said. I would not be surprised to see Shohei Ohtani pitch next season. Here's why. Look at what's happening with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. The guy was already out on the field throwing the ball around, and he had some procedure. They didn't say that he had the typical procedure. He had some other procedure. And then notice the language.
You're saying 2024.
Possibly.
Okay.
Because listen to the language that his agent has used when they talk about Ohtani. They didn't necessarily say Tommy John. They said a procedure, right? And so I would not be surprised if when Ohtani announces where he's signing and a team has a press conference, if they say, and the plan for him is to pitch in August of 2024, or right, you know what I mean? Like I would not
a hot
be surprised.
take.
I would not be surprised just because of who Ohtani is and because of the medical advancements that we have made. And again, I'm going to use Aaron Rodgers as an example. I get that he's not playing yet, but the fact that guy's standing around, jumping around, throwing a football on the field is pretty remarkable for the Achilles tear that he had. And so maybe that Ohtani is going to be superhuman as well, and he has access to all of that stuff. I would not be surprised if he is pitching at some point in 2024, which may help with contract negotiations, right? So let's talk about managing without Ohtani. Obviously, the DH spot would be open, and that's good for guys like Trout and Rendon, because both of them are going to need some time off of their feet if Rendon even makes it into the lineup, right?
If he has feet when he comes into spring training.
Logan O'Hoppe is another intriguing name for DH, because he is somebody who offensively, if he had 162 games, he would have had a 40 home run season as the stats laid out. And Adley Rutschman is an example of how you can use a catcher in the DH spot. And have him in there every day. And if you have somebody like a Matt Thaiss or a Max Stassi, like then you can have a really great catcher behind the plate and their bat in the lineup along with a Logan O'Hoppe. I wonder if maybe a manager, whoever it comes in, is going to also use the DH spot for some defensive liabilities, some guys who haven't shown to be great defensively, like a Rengifo or Joe Adell, although they have improved. I think the DH spot keeps their bat in the lineup, and I think you want their bat in the lineup because both of them, especially Rengifo, when he has consistent at bats, he's proven to be somebody that can be helpful in this lineup. And we've seen Ohtani and we've seen Trout bat second and third over the last few years. And so I think when you look at the lineup, it would seem logical to have a consistent lineup of somebody that is batting in the DH spot, or that is you're utilizing the DH spot so that you don't lose somebody if you need to give him a day off. Think like Sean O'Well if he needs a day off at first base, or even like Trout, as we mentioned. But I think that you can utilize that DH spot up and down the lineup so that you can keep a hot bat in the lineup, but maybe get them off of their feet, right?
Yeah, I think if you consider Sean O'Well leading off, I wonder if Trout still bats second, or maybe he's batting third, and maybe you have Moniak at second, or Ward, or Rengifo, maybe even Drury bats there as well. So yeah, you got to consider that lineup, what it's going to look like without Shohei Ohtani. Mike, we got a good voicemail here. Let's go to that one right now.
Hi guys, this is Brett from San Antonio, Texas, but I am an Angels fan, and I want to get your take on why you think Buck Showalter wants to come to Anaheim. I'm a little confused by that. Thanks, guys. That's a question for Fanmail Friday. Hope you have a great day.
Brett from San Antonio, thank you for your question. How come everybody who calls has better voices for
he's got a great radio voice.
I know, he's got a great radio voice.
Podcast,
Brett,
bro.
You need a show, bro. All right, so he's asking, why do we think Buck Showalter wants to come to Anaheim? I mean, consider a couple things, Mike. Like, there's more than one opening for a managerial position at the moment, and Buck seems to be connected to the Angels. Is it because of his connection with Perry back to their Texas Rangers days? Is it the incentive to want to guide a young team to the next level? Is that something that Buck's interested in? Because at this point, this is not a team that's guaranteed to get to the playoffs or even get a World Series.
Sure.
And so it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't Buck want that? Does Buck want to get to and win a World Series? It doesn't seem like that would happen with this version of the Halo team right now. So what is it about Buck coming to the Angels? Why do you think he would want to be here?
I think it's a combination of all of those, Johnny, but quite honestly, like, this is not an unattractive job. And the fact that the Angels have been a losing team, I think that this narrative out there, like, it's a dumpster fire and everybody's going to stay away from it. No. The A's are a dumpster fire, right? Like that's a place that you probably wouldn't want to go and coach. But in this place, they do spend some money, and in the parameters that Artie has set up, they have spent money and they have bumped up against the luxury tax. They did go over it when they made trades. And so I think that there's a lot of good. And I think for somebody like Buck, he could come in, there's no expectation, and he could take this team and they win 90 games and they get to the playoffs and he'd be a hero, right? Like he'd be the guy we'd celebrate as much as we'd celebrate Mike Scioscia. And so I think that he sees the young talent. I think that he sees a young guy like Perry Manassian leading. And I think he sees this as an opportunity to maybe put his fingerprints and thumbprints on a team that has been terrible for over 10 years. And why not come in and ride off into the sunset? Maybe you're here for a couple of years and you lead this team to the playoffs a couple of times. Perhaps you get lucky and you win a World Series. Like, that would be incredible. And I think that any sort of manager that has experience would go, yeah, I'll take that. I'd love to come there and knock it out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, and look, it's a good gig, like being on the West Coast and near the beach and whatnot too. But I think you're right, Mike. I think he can come into this season, if it's him, and not have any expectations. It's not a matter of like, Buck, you better get us to the playoffs, young man. Like, that's not going to be the expectation. That might be the outward language that the Angels use, but I don't think that that's going to be the expectation. And so, yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is just he wants to get in and get his fingerprints on this and leave an impact. I think you're right on the money with that one.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Ibotta. Holidays are coming, which
I
means
know.
family get-togethers. And I know you are going to spend a lot of money on my Christmas gift, John. But here's good news is that when you go out and purchase the Thanksgiving meal that mom is going to cook for us,
That's
you
right.
can get money back. With Ibotta, you can get your turkey and all your favorite sides for free starting November 1st. And for the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast.
Let's
All
go.
you have to do is shop at some of your local favorite retailers and then just upload your receipt down. And mom's not going to do that and dad doesn't know how, so you're going to have to help them out. Download the Ibotta app right now, use our promo code MLB and get $100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Again, go to the Apple Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app and use our promo code MLB. That's IBOTTA, Ibotta, in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, and use our promo code MLB.
Last round of questions for this Fanmail Friday. The next one comes from Bill Flitcraft on YouTube. Quick question here. What do you think is the future of David Fletcher and the Angels, especially in 2024? Mike, can I just say really fast, I still like David Fletcher. I think he's a great guy, a great player when he's in there. I just don't think they're going to be counting on him. It seems like all indications are that they're not over him, but like, I don't think he's a guy that you're like, man, I can't wait to see him play second base or what have you. I feel like they moved on. Now, I will say, if Buck Showalter gets the job, he's a big fan of David Fletcher. Remember that clip going around of him on MLB Network talking about him being super underrated, but also he was sharing that clip, or he was saying that, and that clip was from the time where Fletcher was on that amazing hitting streak and was like the best player back in like June of 21 for us. So for me, I don't think Fletcher is somebody they're going to be counting on, but what about you?
Yeah, I don't think so either. Jeff Fletcher, David's cousin. No, it's not. But Jeff Fletcher wrote a really good article with the OC Register about David Fletcher and trying to earn the right to come back. I do think that they've moved on from Fletch because Fletch is kind of ambiguous about like what his role will be. And even during the season, he wasn't sure. He didn't hear from anybody at the major league level, like where he was going to be and if he was going to come back up. I think they're moving on. I think they're going to move to some of the younger guys. I'd rather see a Kyron Paris in there than a David Fletcher and let him prove himself. And it's probably some contract issue as well. Like they don't want to have to pay him and things like that. So it might be wise if they just trade him and let him go. I think if they traded a David Fletcher and maybe even traded a Max Stassi and got some young arms, if they can get some young arms or some young players, that might be a really wise move for the Angels this offseason.
Here's what confuses me is that the contract manipulation, if you're so concerned about, David Fletcher leaving your team, then why are you keeping him around to hit that, the 5 years of service time, right? So it's the whole situation is confusing. I don't even think they have a clear plan. So Bill, unfortunately, I don't think that we can answer that question because I don't think the Angels can answer that question for you right now. Kurt from YouTube said, are there any updates on Trout, Ward, Gio Urshela, Joyce, a lot of players, and Ohtani and Rendon's injuries? All you have to do is look at this list and you can see what happened to the Angels this year. And Kurt, you're right. And there's a lot of ridiculous injuries this year, but let me just run through these real fast. Trout should be ready for spring training. Ward is a little bit questionable for spring training. He's going to have to work on his timing at the plate. And then also kind of the mental obstacle of getting over being hit in the face with a fastball, because I think that's going to be really hard to overcome when you're at the plate. Hitters really have to work to come back from that. Gio Urshela is going to be a free agent and he should be good to go by spring training. So it's unclear where he's going to end up if the Angels will re-sign him. Ben Joyce is healthy. He came back before the end of the season and looked really good. Sam Bachman underwent shoulder or arthroscopic cleanup on his shoulder. So he had a little bit of surgery on October 3rd. Manassian said that he's ready to go by spring training. Luis Rengifo had his torn bicep repaired by surgery in mid-September. Chris Rodriguez actually had a setback, Mike. He pitched a game in single A for the first time in 2 years.
Yeah.
And then was shut down. That was about September 29th, I think. And then Ohtani, we talked about him and how he'll DH next year. I'm giving you the hot take right there, dude. If you think that he's going to be back and pitching in 2024, I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah.
And so mark it down. Mike Frisch of the Super Halo Bros was the first one to call that one. And then finally, Rendon should be able to go by spring training. Should is the operative word there.
Yeah. Johnny, we got a voicemail from Dan the farmer. Unfortunately, it was really, really choppy when he was out on the farm. It didn't come through very well, right? So, but we did get a printout of what he asked. And so he said, I know you hate to hear it, but baseball turns out to be a game of luck. I know you like to bash the Angels. We'll address that for this. And how about the Yankees and the Mets and all of those other teams that spent a lot? If the Angels stayed healthy and everything would have happened just at the right time, like it did for the Diamondbacks and for the Phillies, the Halos could have been there. But that's just the odds. You win a world championship on average every 32 years. And that's if the other teams don't get lucky and win 4 or 5 or 6. I know it's part of your job, but it's a game of inches and a game of luck, sadly. So, Johnny, could I just say, let's be clear. We don't have this show as a platform to bash the Angels. In fact, you and I are accused of being way too positive, right? Like way too positive. And that's just the reality. Now, we do talk honestly about the Angels' shortcomings in their player development and how they spent money and ownership. And our goal is to address the shortcomings, not just knock them and bash them. And we like to bring solutions. And so when people say nothing changes until Artie sells, well, okay, we're with you, but we also think that it's important to talk about like what would be the solutions in the sandbox that Artie has created.
Yeah, look, as much as we are fed up with Artie Moreno and his crew, the fact is a lot of other teams are dealing with garbage decisions as well too. Yeah. So they're operating within that. But Mike, really quick, going back to Dan, I love Dan the farmer. I love that from Wisconsin regarding injuries. It's not incorrect. The Angels had a ton of injuries and that things would have gone better if they hadn't had to deal with so many. And honestly, they were a good team until they got hurt. They weren't the best team in baseball. They certainly weren't the worst team either. And we believe that they could easily get the third wild card spot. And by all accounts, the way things shook out, they were right there until everybody started getting hurt. And if they had continued on the way that they did, I think it would have been just fine. So I'm not sure where the idea that bashing comes from, because I feel like we supported the team all throughout until things got really bad. But either way, it's a ridiculous amount of injuries, but also going back to their shortcomings. I mean, they have to have the ability to rely on players within their system to come in and replace those injuries. And they tried to do that with trading, and they went out and got Moustakas and Escobar when Gio Urshela was hurting, and Taylor Ward got hurt. So they went out and got Grichuk. They also got Crone in that trade. But the fact is, the trades they made turned out to be bad. And so you can chalk that up to bad luck, or maybe even bad scouting or data, or even team chemistry at the end of the day when it comes to injuries.
Right. Absolutely. I think when it comes to like luck as well, like, yeah, I get that luck is a part of it, but there's a whole lot of examples that we could use that would talk about like how luck didn't go our way, like a Brandon Drury double that didn't go over the wall against or did go over the wall against the Mariners, right? And tied the game instead of tying the game, it helped the other team, right? It stopped a runner at third. There's been bad decisions. There's been bad practices. There's been a lot of bad with the Angels. So I think luck does have to do with it. But I also think that if you have a really good coaching staff and you have really good decision makers around you, then those bad luck moments turn into good luck moments because you're making good decisions and you're hitting when it's necessary. You're hitting with runners in scoring position. The truth is that some of those moments were so huge and magnified because the Angels didn't come through in moments prior to that.
Yeah, like bad luck is Joe Adell comes up to replace Trout and then he gets hurt. But bad practice is Joe Adell got hurt because of his oblique, and the Angels had a ton of oblique injuries. So what's the deal with the training staff? I think that's what we're trying to point out here is like there's bad luck and there's bad decisions and bad practices. Like you lose Zach Neto to injury and that's bad luck. But a bad practice is you leave David Fletcher in AAA and run out Andrew Velasquez every single day. So at the end of the day, you got to thread the needle of, all 30 teams are dealing with bad luck in a game of inches. But when it comes to this show and talking about the Angels, we have to identify what their issues have been and what they continue to be. And they have to be responsible and take responsibility for what they can change, not the bad luck that's out of their hands.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Remember, we're here Monday through Friday with all of your Angels content. And if you want to reach out to us, you can on social media. Johnny, tell them how.
Yeah, get at us at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
All right. Who's going to be the pitching coach? That's the biggest question, right? And so we're going to throw some names out there. We're going to talk about if it gets influenced by the manager. All of those conversations are going to happen on Monday on Locked On Angels.
All right, friends. Thanks for being here with us. We hope you have a great weekend. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Have yourself a great weekend. Stay safe if you're going to Halloween parties, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Matt Wise saving good ideas for another team. Come on.